13 years ago, no one in football was talking about Saudi Arabia. Today, the entire sport revolves around it. How did that happen? It all became real on one single day, December 11th, 2024, when FIFA handed the 2034 World Cup to Saudi Arabia. This is the story of how a kingdom built a football empire, brick by brick, billion by billion. Before 2016, no one in the football world spoke about Saudi Arabia. The country's image was oil. Football was not part of that picture. The national team would appear in Asian competitions from time to time, but the domestic league rarely traveled beyond its own borders, and no scout in Europe looked for talent there. The biggest clubs had Madrid on their radar, Manchester on their radar, Munich on their radar. The Gulf was not even part of the conversation. Russia beat them 5-0 in the opening match of the 2018 World Cup. And no one was surprised for a second. Saudi Arabia had money, but it had not yet learned how money speaks inside football. And by then, two of its closest neighbors, Qatar and the United Arab Emirates, had already moved. Manchester City belonged to Abu Dhabi. Paris Saint-Germain belonged to Qatar. Saudi Arabia, the biggest of the three, had not yet stepped onto the pitch until 2016. That year, the entire picture changed. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, often known simply as MBS, announced a national plan called Vision 2030. The plan was simple but ambitious: move the Saudi economy away from oil and toward tourism, technology, and entertainment. The engine of this vision was the country's sovereign wealth fund, known as PF, the Public Investment Fund. It started as a fund of roughly $150 billion. By the end of 2024, that same fund had reached $913 billion. Today, PF is one of the 5 largest sovereign funds on Earth, a wallet larger than the entire economy of most European countries. A meaningful slice of that money was set aside for football, because football is the only product on the planet that billions of people watch every single week. If a country wants to reintroduce itself to the world, no billboard speaks as loudly as a Premier League club. The first concrete move in the story came in October 2021. After 18 months of negotiation and legal disputes, PF completed the purchase of Newcastle United for around £305 million. 80% of the club went to the Saudi fund, with 2 British partners holding the rest. Newcastle had not won an English league title since 1927. Under the previous owner, Mike Ashley, Newcastle had been stuck near the bottom of the table for years. Fans were worn out, and the noise inside St. James's Park had faded. Only 3 seasons after the takeover, Newcastle were back in the Champions League. In 2025, they lifted the EFL Cup, their first major domestic trophy in 70 years. Saudi Arabia's message was clear. It was no longer just a visitor to football, it was a host. But Newcastle was just the opening chapter of the story. The real chapter had not yet been written. On December 30th, 2022, a plane landed at Riyadh Airport. When the door opened, the face that stepped out was one of the most recognizable on the planet: Cristiano Ronaldo. The Manchester United chapter had closed. No serious offer had come from Europe. And now he was holding a contract with Al-Nassr worth around $200 million per year. It was the largest annual football salary ever recorded. His first match drew a packed stadium. Al-Nassr's social media following grew by millions within weeks. But this was just one player. For PF, Ronaldo was not really a player. He was an advertisement, a trailer for what was coming next. The moment everything truly cracked open was the summer of 2023. In June 2023, PF brought the 4 biggest names in the league under one roof in a single move: Al Hilal, Al Nassr, Al Ittihad, and Al Ahly. This was no longer the random spending of a few rich clubs. This was a state strategy planned from start to finish. Then the transfer wind started to blow. Ballon d'Or winner Karim Benzema left Real Madrid for Al-Ittihad. Neymar moved from Paris Saint-Germain to Al-Hilal for around 90 million euros. Sadio Mané, Riyad Mahrez, Roberto Firmino, Kalidou Koulibaly, N'Golo Kanté, Aymeric Laporte, some of the most familiar faces in European football, flew to Riyadh, Jeddah, and Al Khobar within a matter of weeks. By the end of that summer, Deloitte's report was in. The Saudi Pro League had spent $957 million. That figure had pushed past Spain's La Liga and Italy's Serie A in a single transfer window. The football world had never seen a move this coordinated, but football was only one part of this bigger picture. In those same years, Saudi Arabia launched LIV Golf and rewrote the professional golf world from scratch. The Saudi Arabian Grand Prix took its place on the Formula One calendar. Anthony Joshua was now staging many of the biggest fights of his career in Riyadh. A long-term strategic partnership with the WWE was announced. From tennis to snooker, from darts to MMA, the Saudi hand had become visible in every major sport. But none of it could step out of the shadow of the real, bigger goal. December 11th, 2024, Zurich, the extraordinary FIFA Congress on the table, and on that day, the real prize found its owner. In front of 211 federations gathered online, Saudi Arabia was officially named the host of the 2034 World Cup. There was only one candidate on the table. The process closed with a single round of applause, leaving no room for debate. This will be the first 48-team World Cup ever held in a single country. 5 host cities, Riyadh, Jeddah, Al-Khobar, Aba, and the futuristic NEOM project, will share a total of 15 stadiums. For comparison, the 2022 World Cup in neighboring Qatar reached around 5 billion viewers worldwide. The 2034 number will be even higher. The silent kingdom that had spent years in the background of football was now standing right in the middle of the stage. A move on this scale started a wide debate all around the world. Supporters of the Saudi project point to the changes happening inside the country. For the first time in modern history, Saudi women have taken their place in the stands and at concert venues. New jobs, new stadiums, and new infrastructure have appeared. Critics, however, paint a different picture. International human rights organizations raised questions about the country's domestic policies and added a new word to the conversation: sportswashing, using sports as a tool to improve a country's international image. The Saudi government rejects that framing and highlights its broader reform agenda and the changing lifestyle of its young population. There is no single right answer that everyone agrees on. Football has always sat at the meeting point of money, identity, and politics. What is happening today is really a new page of a very old story. The only difference is that this page is being written in a completely different part of the world. So where is this journey heading now? The Saudi Pro League is still trying to find its own level. A significant portion of the league's biggest names are players in the final stretch of their careers. Europe's brightest young talents still choose Madrid, Manchester, and Paris. Television audiences inside Saudi Arabia remain modest compared to Europe, but the game being played here is not measured by short-term results. By 2034, an entire generation of Saudi players, coaches, and clubs will have grown up inside this new system. The World Cup will bring billions of viewers, brand new stadiums, and a full month of global attention. Whichever direction football evolves in over the next decade, Saudi Arabia will be a permanent part of that picture. The Saudi Arabia football story is not just the story of one country. It is also the story of the new order of modern football. It is living proof of what a country, One whose name nobody had even heard on the football map a decade ago, can achieve in 13 years with unlimited resources, a clear vision, and a disciplined strategy. Let me confess something. Even I was surprised by the scale of the numbers while putting this video together. Seeing how planned this 13-year machine actually is hits differently. Now I'm only curious about one thing. Where do you stand in this story? Excited, worried, undecided? Drop it honestly in the comments. What does your gut tell you about Saudi football? I'll be reading every single one.